The writings of Binyamin Zeev Kahane of blessed memory. And this year, Binyamin speaks about Shavuot, and this was written in 1998. Restoring the authentic glory. Though the sages tell us that the Torah will never be completely forgotten, they did nevertheless foresee a scenario of serious deterioration of Torah learning. Indeed, the long years of exile, Galut, severed the Jew from any nationalistic development and crippled his ability to observe the Torah properly. The original concepts of Torah could not be properly absorbed as distortions infiltrated Torah learning, perverting the authentic Jewish idea beyond recognition. Foreign ideas were mixed together with holy Torah concepts, and when the smoke cleared, we were left clinging to no more than an empty Jewish ritual. But the idea, which is in the essence of the soul of the Torah, is what brings the Jew to holiness. It unfortunately was thrown by the wayside. Over and over again, we discuss how the authentic idea is in exile. For this is the tikkun we have taken upon ourselves, to restore the pure and authentic Torah idea. And what time can be more appropriate than Shavuot, the time of Matan Torah, to raise this issue. Matan Torah is the giving of the Torah, where we received at Mount Sinai. Tanach, the key. This exile of authentic Torah ideas is expressed most distressingly in what has become an almost universal phenomenon, the abandonment of Tanach learning. The exile of our people has caused the Tanach, which is supposed to be the basis of our faith, to deteriorate into something less and less relevant in our everyday life. The experiences of our nation underwent in the land of Israel in the days of the Tanach so drastically differed from our experiences in the exile that it reached the point where we actually exiled the Tanach from the Torah halls. It is the Tanach which provides us with a complete picture of what Judaism is all about. Only in Tanakh do we grasp what it's like for the Jewish people to live in the Jewish land, and how a normal Jew behaves. Only in Tanakh do we see how the entire nation is punished or rewarded as a single entity, and the concepts of which today's top national agenda are found in Tanakh gives clear and unambiguous guidance. All we need is to study it. He who cuts off from Tanakh cannot possibly grasp what is the Jewish people. That is the Jewish state. Just as we might prefer to living in Brooklyn, far away from the troubles of the Jewish nation, and still from the redemptive process. In the Tanakh, we are presented with the portrayal of the ideal Jewish leader. Behold, Avraham Avinu. This is Abraham, our father, the leader of our Jewish nation, who unassisted found his way to God. The paradigm of the man of loving kindness, the paradigm of the man who made war for sanctification of the name of God, who subdued 4 kings. This is when, of course, he rescued Lot, for a reference. Behold David, the sweet singer of Israel, warrior and poet, and he wrote the book of Psalms. Writing the Psalms, he also slew the blaspheming Philistines, which is Goliath, and continued to fight throughout his life to enlarge the borders of Israel, to meet such heroic figures as Benayahu ben Yehuda and Yoav, brilliant military leaders whom the sages reveal as having been no less than the heads of the Sanhedrin, the nation's top religious leaders. This is but a taste of the awesome richness and depth of the authentic Jewish thought that is to be found in the Tanakh. Nonetheless, though the Tanakh is the world's single most famous and influential book, it has been banished from yeshivot. Tanakh at the age of 5. The teachings of our sages from Pirkei Avos, the ethics of our fathers, chapter 5, paragraph 21, is well known. At the age of 5, study of Tanakh should commence. 10 for the study of Mishnah, 15 for the study of Talmud. To most, this is a nice saying, but without any practical implications. Whoever takes the words of our sages seriously knows that they meant every word that they said. The Torah is a structured edifice, with the study of Tanach being its foundation. If one begins at the age of 9 to study what is really appropriate for the age of 15-year-olds, then he will bypass the study of the Tanach and will be left like a building without its foundation. The Tanach is the basis for all Torah study, and without it the whole structure is left flimsy and begins to crumble later on. It is told that when Rabbi Akiva began to study the Torah at the age of 40, he went and sat among small children who were just beginning to learn. There is no doubt that his mind was developed enough to dive straight into the study of Talmud. However, he waited. The reason being is that without a thorough knowledge of Tanakh and Mishnah, his jump into the study of Talmud would not have produced one of the greatest Torah minds of all time, who fought with an intense love of his nation in the war to sanctify God's name against the Romans. All of this from his understanding of the authentic Jewish ideas found in the Tanakh. Torah study is in need of an overhaul. When we study the Torah and concentrate almost entirely around a few choices, sections of Gemara, as in the case of most yeshivot, then there is not only a deficiency in the knowledge of Tanakh, but there is an inadequacy in the knowledge of the Mishnah and the Talmud itself. Such a situation is most unfortunate. One can split hairs over a particular section of Gemara and remain in an ignoramus when it comes to the most fundamental and simple concepts of Judaism. Certainly, there is no doubt that a Torah scholar must possess a deep and thorough understanding of Talmud. However, without the knowledge of Tanakh, it is not his learning left lifeless and without feeling. Is it not comparable to a 3-story building without a foundation? Is it not us who began this cry for a change? On the contrary, Rabbeinu Ba'yachai, the Maharal of Prague, and many other great Torah leaders throughout the generations have called for an overhaul in Torah learning. Also today, many yeshiva leaders are pained by this sad state. However, most think that their calls for change will be in vain. But the truth is, there is a thirst and awakening amongst the masses, especially the young, to straighten out the path of learning to the authentic way in which our sages laid out for us and received from Sinai. With the help of God, the authentic Torah of glory study will be restored. Now, I said Tanakh a whole bunch of times. I just read. So, just so you know, and people who don't know, the Tanakh is not only the Torah, the 5 books of Moses, but all the writings of the prophets. So all the prophets are in Tanakh, as well as what we call the writings, which are like the Psalms and the Proverbs and things along those lines. So this is the Tanakh. The Tanakh is basically the entire writings of the Jewish people. I'm not talking about, of course, Mishnah and Talmud, but the prophetical writings, pretty much, because all of the people that have written in the Tanakh, for the most part, were prophets. Even the women, such as Ruth and Esther, and Miriam. Not that I know that she really wrote no book of Miriam, but of course Sarah and Leah and Rachel and Rebecca were, of course, prophetesses as well. So the point of this basically is to learn Tanakh. Go out and buy one in any Judaica store. Any Judaica store, you can buy Tanakh, and you can read about it. All of the books of the prophets, very interesting stuff. It's not just enough to learn the little Haftorah every week, but the Tanakh is very important, as Binyamin said, and his father even wrote about it as well in the Jewish idea that the Tanakh has basically been discarded, and this is a tragedy. So this is again the writings of Binyamin Zeev Kahane, and may his blood be avenged and his soul be blessed in heaven, him and Talia and his father Meir.